identity is a lifelong process. I still don't even know who I am, right? But hindsight, there's a saying, life is lived forward but understood backwards.
Right.
Think about the shoulders that I stand on. And so that gives me my identity. When I don't feel like moving forward, when I don't know who I am, when things look a little foggy, I know that I come from a lineage of disruptors. So I know that I'm a disruptor and I challenge people. So I'd say that's where my identity comes from. I'll say religion is a foundation of how I live my life because religion is about discipline.
It is, yeah.
A lot of your first mentors come out of church in a lot of cases.
Okay.
My story, things that could have happened to me or people that were on the same path as me, and for some reason I left or missed that day when things went downhill, or I dodged that bullet, is very much why I have the faith that I have. Because truth is, I shouldn't even be where I'm at.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, welcome to another conversation on Think Twice. My guest today is called Kourtney. I've got a bunch of questions for Kourtney, but before we get to them, we'll let Kourtney introduce herself.
My name's Kourtney, and I am born and raised in Ontario, Windsor, Ontario.
Right.
Mother is actually from Detroit, Michigan. She lives in Detroit, Michigan. Nurse by trade, lover in every sense of the word, but mostly love God.
So our first question for Kourtney is how has your perception about what it entails being a woman changed throughout your years?
That's the first question?
That is the first question.
Okay, how is my perception of
what it entails being a woman changed throughout
my life?
Your life, yeah.
Okay, so I can give you a long-winded answer. I don't know how to give short answers.
Go for it.
So I'd say at 12, which was a huge pivotal point in my life, my perception of womanhood was very narrow. Like, I even think about, like, I used to play with dolls, and like the way that I reenacted dolls was like domesticated, mother, wife, like it was always like wife and children. I had my Ken dolls, that was a husband. And then you also have to talk about culture. Like, I grew up in the 90s, so a lot of the music and the depiction of Black women was based on their external appearance. So tip drill videos, a lot of those like video vixens, like those were, so my idea of what being a woman was very much about my external. I'd say 22, I was in a relationship. So womanhood was very much in the dynamic of who I could be for that person. And so that was my perception of what I measured up to be as a woman, was based on what that person thought of me. And then now in my 30s, it's less about woman and more about individual. Like, am I a person of integrity? Am I kind? Do I have purpose? How am I showing up in the world? I think that ultimately being a woman is serving myself first, and then that just kind of pours out into other people. So that's my version of womanhood now. Yeah. Looking
up to your mom, like, what are some of the lessons that you took from her?
My mom?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. Interesting enough, my mom in my relationship has not been close. Suffered from or dealt with a lot of like mental health issues, so she couldn't really show up as a parent the way that I'm sure she would have wanted to be. And I was the youngest of 4, and we're all very close in age. It can be very overwhelming. So my version of womanhood is what I got on TV or in books, and I kind of like measured myself based on what I seen in other women that inspired me. So to be honest, my mom didn't really give me much about on who I am today, to be fair.
At what point in your life would you say you started forming a solid identity of who you are as a person? We could go as a woman, which you've already partly tackled
about,
right? Now as a Black woman as well.
Ooh,
right?
That's a good point. Okay. Identity. But first of all, identity is a lifelong process. I still don't even know who I am, right? But hindsight, there's a saying, life is lived forward but understood backwards. Life's, in hindsight, 2020. So identity, for one, who I am is very much on being my spirituality. So I know that God created me. He didn't make any mistakes. So every odd, weird, funny thing about me, good and bad, is all a part of my identity. I have to accept that. And then also, I know the DNA of my ancestors. So we could start back with my grandmother.
Okay.
My grandmother in Detroit, she was part of those really monumental riots in Detroit, which was against police brutality, a lot of discrimination, disenfranchisement, like all of that. My grandmother was on the front lines fighting with guns, all the things. Like she very much fought for that. And then even, we talk about the diaspora, my ancestors, the slave revolts, their form of resistance, even like the resistance would go by any means necessary. So if you really think about it, they did even the unthinkable things as a form of resistance. Suicide is a form of resistance.
I've heard about that too in a lot of the history books that I've read. I mean, it's just a way of like saying, you know what, like nothing else is left, right?
And I'd rather die than to go, than to be colonized for the rest of my life, right? So I think about that. I think about the shoulders that I stand on. And so that gives me my identity. When I don't feel like moving forward, when I don't know who I am, when things look a little foggy, I know that I come from a lineage of disruptors. So I know that I'm a disruptor and I challenge people. So I'd say that's where my identity comes from.
Did you always grow up religious, or is this something that you've recently discovered, or at what point did you become this?
And it's interesting because I grew up in the church. Like my dad is a pastor, but I wasn't raised by my dad. Like after my parents divorced when I was 10, so I went a couple of years without seeing him. So I can't say that that's what it is. I'll say religion is a foundation of how I live my life, because religion is about discipline.
It is. Yeah.
A lot of your first mentors come out of church in a lot of cases. So it is a part of my being, but my relationship and the way that I feel now is more recent. And that is less of I don't know. I don't really know how to put it into words. But to answer your question, no, that wasn't always the case for me. I very much I've done some things and been through some things to get me to this place. And my story, things that could have happened to me or people that were on the same path as me, and for some reason I left or I missed that day when things went downhill, or I dodged that bullet, is very much why I have the faith that I have. Because the truth is, I shouldn't even be where I'm at.
Really?
Yeah. Without giving too much information. But no, yeah. There's been a lot of instances where I should not have ended up here with my whole mind and with financial stability, no criminal record. Yeah, I shouldn't be here. And it was nothing that I could have done. So that's where my faith comes from, for sure. And it's less about like a denomination, although I am a Christian. But yeah, it's because God showed me for myself. Like it's a very individual relationship. Yeah.
Another thing that I also noted, even on our conversation last year too, and even here too with the first question, you mentioned about being in a relationship at the age of 22.
Oh yeah.
And if I remember correctly, I think that lasted about 8 years, right?
Yeah, it started at 19.
Started at 19, and then it ended at what age?
8 years later.
8 years, so what, 27? Yeah? Okay. So what would you say that relationship taught you, and how did you transform as as the years went by?
Yeah. Relationships, like even friendships, have taught me, but that particular relationship taught me so many things. More specifically, let's talk about love. So love, I think it can heal. I think love healed me, for sure. Especially if you've never seen love before, like to a certain capacity, and then you're introduced to love, then that can change your perspective on humanity or just on people. But I don't think love can sustain a relationship. And that's one thing that I learned. Because you go through so many different things, and it's going to be more than just love that's going to keep that relationship. I also learned that self-acceptance and autonomy, if you don't have that as an individual, that relationship I think is going to be disastrous because you'll be enabling each other. And then also, I think my biggest lesson in that relationship personally was that I think we forget that people choose to be in a relationship with you. They're not obligated to be in a relationship with you. And for somebody to choose you is really a privilege. They had a life before you even came around. So I think that this idea of trying to change people, and that's me, it taught me that I need to know what I need and what I want, and be accepting of myself so that I don't try to change another person. Because I think when you know what you want and you know what you need, then you know if somebody who they are, when they show you who they are at the beginning, you know if that's something you can or cannot tolerate. So it has nothing to do with the other person. It had everything to do with me and my insecurities. Yeah, that's what I learned.
Do you feel like those insecurities are still present to this day, or you think you've molded them in and made them a strength?
I'm growing every day, but one thing about me is I am a very introspective person. So I think about my thinking. I journal a lot. I've been journaling since I was young, so I can look at my patterns and I can see areas and gaps that I need to work on. I get wise counsel. So I have a life coach and a therapist.
Oh, that's dope.
I have people that are older than me and smarter than me that have like I call it a shut up card that can literally make me because respect to me is earned, and I don't just take advice from anybody. So I think that I have certain things in place now that I don't have to worry about. That I have people in my blind spots that if I start, because I used to think that my opinion was the right opinion all the time, and I realized I don't know anything. So yeah, I don't think I have the same insecurities now.
That's good. What would you say is your strength right now? What's your biggest strength right now?
Ooh, my biggest strength right now, curiosity.
Yeah, well, that's a good strength.
It's in every aspect, whether it was in getting a degree in nursing, or in my relationships. I ask questions. If I meet somebody that I've never met, I can get curious and ask them questions that they may have never even thought to ask themselves. And then just being a student to life is, I think, a huge strength.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And what would you say is your weakness?
Ooh, criticism.
You don't like criticism?
I critique myself.
Yeah.
And therefore I think I judge people because I judge myself so harshly. It's very much a weakness. I don't like to make mistakes in public. I'd rather do it in private. So I'd rather mess up in practice and rehearse and do all these things before I put myself out there, and that's not authentic.
Do you like being told what to do?
Ooh, yeah.
You do?
No.
You don't, right?
No.
Okay.
But I'm growing, and I'll tell you where that comes from me.
Because
I've been on my own since I was 16. I don't have to answer to nobody.
Right.
I make my decisions. My decisions got to me where I'm at. That was a big issue in my relationship too, and it's called pride.
See, I'm the same way. That's why when you were talking about your weakness about not taking criticism, that's why I was saying I align with that, because even me, from like 15, I would say around 14, 15, that's when I started living alone.
Autonomy, man.
Right? And once you're in that bubble, taking care of yourself, you grow up before even that age where you should be growing up. Right? So that's why I had to ask you that question.
Well,
because I don't like being told what to do either.
Right. And so even further, how much does trust have to do with it for me? Because if I made all the decisions for myself and I trust that my decisions got me where I am, do I trust other people's decision of me? I trust my own, and I think that's something that I also have to work on, which is trust.
And I think as well, it's a part. It's. I don't want this to be misread, but I think it's partly entitlement that this life that you've led so far, you feel entitled that every decision that you make should come from you, right? You don't want anyone, crossing that line and say, you know what? Even sometimes it could be a recommendation. Hey, I think you should do this way. It might come.
It's like, are you attacking my character?
Right? Exactly. So I get it.
And so that's why I have against my own wanting, but it's definitely stretched me. Life coaches, therapists, and people that are older and smarter than me, or who have lived a little bit longer than me, in my circle.
So, what age did you, start having those people around, the life coaches and the therapists?
When I got single, so that would have been in 2019.
2019.
Yeah, okay. I started because when I was in a relationship, that was who I was. So I didn't expect not to be in that relationship for the rest of my life. When that didn't become reality, and then we're going into COVID happening, I realized that nothing is permanent. I'm like, okay, I need to change. Like, because one of my biggest things since I was young, I'm not trying to leave this earth with a lot of potential left on the table.
Same, yeah.
So I'm looking at, when I tell you 2020, I was working 3 jobs. I was getting my finances together. I was taking so many workshops. I was doing so many things. That self-development is so big for me. So life coaching and therapy is all part of personal development. So that's how it happened.
That was good.
Best decision I ever made.
2019. And it's still going on, right?
Oh yeah, it's a lifelong thing.
That's good.
Yeah, we're friends at this point.
Okay, so now my next question is: Do you feel at any point that you will, not need them? Do you think you will ever come to that point where you won't need to confide in them and share, or do you feel like you've already crossed that boundary?
I think I'm there. Like, I don't need. I think I have the tools, but there's new traumas that come with life, right? So that's new levels, new devils. So I may think that I have it all figured out, but there's gonna come a time when I'm gonna be like, oh, I need an opinion, and I find it so helpful that I don't burden my friends, because now I can go to somebody who is unbiased, first of all, gets paid, and then I don't have to go to my friends for advice, because I don't think that's appropriate. And then in relationship, I won't be pouring all of myself on that person, because I'll have my own sounding board. And I think it's important for whoever I date as well to be doing the same amount of work.
Do you have a type when you go for men? Is there like a specific type that you seek in men?
No, to be honest, I've had a horrible time choosing men. Yeah, I haven't chose well. It has to do with my own self-esteem, though. Okay. But a type.
Your standards are high.
No, they were too low.
They were too low?
Too low, for sure.
Really?
Yeah. This is past tense. I'm not dating right now.
Okay.
But they were too low. And that was the thing. I would have people telling me that my standards are too high. So I'm like, oh, maybe I am a little. But at the end, like, oh, you think too deep. Or, these are things that I've been told, right?
That, yeah.
So I just kind of I'm like, oh, maybe you're right. I start moving a long-standing boundary. But at the end of the day, my standards aren't too high. I think, like I said, the more I accept myself, the more I can accept other people where they're at. But my type is somebody who has, okay, let's talk about values. Sorry, just kind of
So you have a type, yeah.
Yeah, so this is where my values, my top 4 values is the basis of all of my decisions. Okay. Relationships, financial decisions, all of those things. So if your values and my values, which are service, spirituality, love, and integrity, if they don't align with your values and that's in your actions, then we're just not made for each other. Is that too high?
No.
Oh, okay. No. I was like, are my standards too high?
See, I believe, right, before you get into a relationship with someone, obviously we have the first stage where it's getting to know each other, right? I believe you should lay yourself on the table and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This might, because sometimes some people, once you come across, that self-aware, and they don't meet you, they're not like that self-aware themselves. They might say, hey, no, I don't think I'm ready for this type of relationship. So I am totally for, 1 year in, you say, hey, this is who I am and this is what I'm expecting from you. Do you think you can live up to these expectations?
Yeah, and not trying to change them, but at least telling them what you want and let them answer.
I agree. I think that's the foundation of a healthy and a lasting relationship. I totally think so too. What would you say is your biggest achievement?
Yeah, so my biggest achievement is a good question.
Well accomplished, eh?
Not even in that way, but I could talk about being a nurse, or we were talking about my athleticism and achieving those personal goals as far as running and things like that. But ultimately, everything we've talked about, like my awareness, my growth is my biggest achievement. My relationship with God is my biggest achievement. Yeah, for sure. I think my 70-year-old self would be proud of me right now, right. Straight up. So, yeah, that would be my biggest accomplishment right now.
When you look back at your life, what would you say was the hardest year, like a specific age? What would you say is the hardest age to live?
High school was very difficult.
And that's what, like 15, 13, or?
Yeah, so like, yeah, I'd say from 16 to 19 when I moved out here.
Okay.
So many different transitions. So many transitions from relationships to people I was close with getting locked up, being kicked out of my house as a teen. So not really understanding, like, I never really told anybody what was going on, so I just figured it out all the time. And that's how to be honest, and then getting in relationships. So there was a lot of transitions in high school. So that would have been a really hard year for me, for sure.
Okay. Now hearing that, I can see why you place a lot of faith in God. And you didn't even go deep.
No.
But I can already imagine like what it could have been.
Right.
And that is impressive. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people give credit to a higher power just for where they are right now.
And the issue is that we look for people to meet our expectations, and that's a losing game.
No, I see that. But you're good, right?
Good.
I can tell you're good.
Can you tell me what you mean by that?
I can tell you're good because at that age, to having experienced, those are 30-year-old, 20-year-old problems.
Right.
But for you to face that before your 20s.
Thought about that. As a teen, while going to school every day with a lot of people who had, my school wasn't, like, it was inner city, but it was a little bit of mixture of both. But like nobody knew what I was going through because I was the top athlete in the school. Right. Very popular because I had 3 older brothers that everybody, were fond of. And so nobody knew. Nobody knew. I've even reconnected with people from my childhood and they're like, dang, like I never,
That's the thing. It's hard to see when, it's hard to see the dark side when what society sees is like the glam, like the good side of you. That's the thing, because you don't know who to really trust. Open up to. Yeah. Especially at that age too.
Yeah. Who's even capable of holding that at that age? Because all of my friends were my age. You know what I mean? So like, and all the ones that were older that I hung with weren't doing any better. They were like, I was like introduced to going to like the bars and stuff at a very, very young age. I was very curious. Right. So it definitely wasn't me to why I'm where I'm at today. Because I put myself in a lot of dangerous situations going back and forth from Canada and to Detroit. Yeah.
Would you call the U.S. home? Like when we say home, we're referring to
Detroit.
Yeah, but would you call it a place where you could see your future at? Like would you raise a family there? No. So do you think you're currently looking for a new home?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I felt, I don't even know what home is. Home is inside of me at this point because I've never had a place like where I called home, to be honest, like as far as city goes. Right. So I'm always, my answer is always yes to new opportunities. So I could end up like having my American citizenship and my Canadian citizenship. I could go anywhere. Right. And so, I guess I am maybe looking for a new home unless I'm called to something here that will keep me here. But never know.
What would you say is your biggest regret thus far?
Regret? I don't know that I have regrets.
You don't?
No.
That's the first person I heard. Really?
Yeah, no. I wouldn't even be who I am without the dumb decisions that I made, okay? So, no regrets at all. I guess I wish I would have believed in myself sooner.
Okay.
Yeah. But comes with the territory. It wasn't for people who believed in me along the journey that made me see myself. So I don't regret anything.
That's good.